Hello, everybody.
Hello.
My name's Victoria, and I'm your co-host, along with my friend.
My name's Shadow, and I'm the other co-host.
Posted was our lessons from season one, and I hope you had a chance to listen to that.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun recording that like in between episode actually. Like it was funny. I thought it might be get too meta to be like, what do I regret about our regrets? But I think we had a lot of fun with it. And yeah, if you haven't listened to that, head on over to our Buzzsprout page and
I do love getting
for
meta
now.
about things, though.
Yeah.
I love a little conspiracy theory, a little meta, a little stuff like
Yeah.
that. So,
Oh, for sure.
why
Yeah.
don't we start with the check-in? What's your check-in? How are you doing on a scale of 1 to 10 today, Shadow?
Oh, all right, like an eight. Yeah, maybe an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I'm a solid 8 today too.
Mm-hmm. Good.
The sun's out, the fun's out. We took a hiatus from recording, which I think was great because it was my darkest months. I'm
Mm,
always dark in the winter because of my
yeah,
seasonal affective disorder. So I feel myself lightening as the sun starts to
nice.
come back and as spring it's not here yet, but as it starts to roll in, I feel myself lightening and myself returning back to Victoria, returning back to myself.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how we are all definitely like just complicated houseplants.
Yeah.
Give us water, give us sun, like yeah, because similarly like this whole like I don't work a traditional 9 to 5 job, but I still really feel it if it's dark before 5.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to get like, oh, it's almost 6 o'clock before the sun's fully going down, and
As
it's
soon
like,
as that
yes.
happens, I start to feel better about myself.
That's great.
Yeah, I
No,
start to
that's
feel better about
exact.
myself.
Yeah, should that just be our cause for applause, or do you have like a separate cause for applause you want to celebrate?
Oh yeah, that can be my cause for applause. I'm starting to feel better about myself. I'm using my light therapy lamp, yes, less, and I'm actually getting sun in my eyeballs. It's
In your
great.
eyeballs. That's funny. I'll actually make my cause for applause something about eyeballs. I
All
have
right.
an optometrist appointment tomorrow, and that means I can get new glasses, and
Ooh.
I'm really freaking excited. My current glasses do this weird thing where they like pinch the back of my head.
Mm.
So I've actually been wearing like glasses that are maybe 3 prescriptions back.
Ooh.
Just because they're more comfortable. But yeah, so I'm excited to get like a functioning pair of glasses and to again talk to my optometrist about the possibility of LASIK. I never get approved, but maybe this time I will be. And then also there's this new thing called like contact lens implants.
Implants.
Yeah, it's like a permanent
Oh my
contact
gosh,
lens
we're
that
living in the future.
I know. I'm scared of it. I'm really scared of it. But if it means like I can live without glasses and not get LASIK, I don't know if it's more risky than LASIK or I don't, and also I don't know if LASIK, I guess LASIK's the brand name. I should be saying laser eye surgery. But yeah, so I'm excited for my optometrist appointment tomorrow. That's my cause for applause.
Are you gonna like change the style of your glasses and
Oh
get something
yeah,
like,
no,
yeah.
always. Yeah, like yeah, I actually have, I will be bringing a couple of different pairs to my appointment, and I'm going to be looking for a unicorn in terms of glasses. I want them to be like this level of thickness, this like I have all these like wish list things for my glasses. And now I know a lot of other people can like buy cheap glasses online. Like there's so many of these businesses that have propped up that are like, oh, buy our cheap glasses. And every time I go to these websites, I get really excited until it goes to like fill out the prescription, and my prescription is never like I'm too high index. Like they just don't carry my prescription
Mm.
at these like cheaper webs or cheaper glasses companies websites. So I mean, I'm happy for the people that that does work for. Like one of my best friends from home gets a new pair of glasses, I feel like every couple of months. And like good for her. Like we should all be so lucky to have a collection.
I don't wear glasses, and I know I'm super lucky. I'm always like a little jealous because I think glasses are cool.
Yeah, no,
Like,
there's definitely days like especially like man, I was doing something recently and if I hadn't been wearing glasses, like something like I was chopping something, or I don't even remember now, but because like it was so not a thing because it just hit off my glasses and like whatever. But had I not been wearing glasses, I would have been like
Injured.
hit in the eye,
Yeah.
injured. Yeah.
I just think glasses are cool. I think they're having a moment, especially like thick rimmed glasses. I love a good thick rimmed glasses.
Yeah. Do you think that's just because you're getting older, or do you think they are having a moment?
Oh, I don't know. Good question. I think they are. I think there's lots of people. Maybe no. I don't know. I think thicker glasses are cool.
No,
You know.
I also love a thicker glass, but I've been loving them my whole life. But I don't really see I don't see it as a trend, I guess.
Oh,
I've
really?
always kind of
Oh.
seen people wear big glasses, and then like older people wear big glasses. And then I think it's also like, this is going to sound kind of funny, but like your celebrities, like
Mm.
I like any of these celebrities you have a parasocial relationship with, where you're like, oh, I grew up with that person. Those people start wearing thick glasses, and you're like,
Oh,
oh,
maybe
it's okay to wear
it's all the
glasses.
power of influence.
Um, oh yeah, big
Well, I
time.
don't have I don't have glasses anyway, so I
Yeah,
mean I'd
I
have
mean, you still
sunglasses
could,
obviously, but
and you have your blue light
I do
blockers,
have my
and
blue light
maybe,
blockers that I wear in front
yeah,
of my computer screen sometimes. And they're like a thick, thick tortoise shell. Yeah.
nice. I just started watching Bless This Mess. It's a fun sitcom, and one of the characters wears fake glasses to seem more professional
Yeah,
as a
it looks
psychiatrist.
cool.
But she got caught by one of her clients for them being fake, and she was like, "How'd you know it was fake?" And he was like, "You took them off to read."
It's funny. Like, if you go to my Instagram account, there are some pictures of me wearing my my thick glasses, and it's always like a post where I'm like, I need to seem more trustworthy. I'm gonna post a picture of myself with the glasses on.
But I think that's totally fine. I think however you like can show up more authentically, like as much as it's like, oh, I mean, that's fake because they're fake glasses. No, like if it means you can like channel the type of persona you need to be successful in that moment, I don't think that's bad.
Great, thank you.
It's like wearing a blazer when you want to look more professional, or wearing like sexy
Right, it's
lingerie
an
when you want to like,
accessory.
yeah,
It's an
yeah,
accessory. My glasses that have clear lenses are an accessory.
exactly.
Do you want to go first today?
Go first
Or do you
today.
want me to go
No,
first?
I want you to go first today.
Okay, I guess I'll go first today.
Great.
All right, let's do this. I have an experience that I need to let go of in order to move forward. It makes me feel a little cringy whenever it pops into my mind. So here it is. I was doing a corporate wellness presentation, and I was leading a wellness session on mindfulness. And there was a lot of staff kind of standing in the back row, and I looked up and I saw them, and they were like the construction worker guys or the park staff, and they're all standing in the back row or sitting in the back row with their arms crossed. And I'm talking to them about mindfulness and how important it is to have a relationship with yourself, and that once you start doing it and you're consistent and persistent about it, that you actually start to see that your subconscious brain will guide your actions, attitudes, and behaviors in a different way. You'll feel lighter, you'll feel more at peace. It doesn't have to be a 45-minute meditation. I give a lot of strategies on things that you can do that are easy. And I look up at them and I just said, I know what you're thinking right now. It was like my inner monologue took over. I said, I know what you're thinking right now. I know you think this is fucking bullshit. And then I stopped and I went, but it's not. And then I went, and I'm really sorry that I just swore in front of everyone. And like, I never got invited back to do another presentation. I feel so like, I think about it now because I've never done that before. I've given hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trainings, probably thousands of trainings across the province of Ontario, for corporate wellness. I've been sought after to give corporate wellness presentations, and I've never stepped out of kind of like my performance of giving the workshop or giving the presentation. They still gave me like a 5-star review. They still, right afterwards, they were like, "You're hilarious." So it was more me judging myself, I think, because I had this idea, or I still do, or sometimes when you give a workshop, you're almost performing a little bit. And I try to be as authentic as possible, but there's a little bit of a script or a little bit of performance that you say when you're giving a workshop. And I feel like if in acting terms, I guess I broke the fourth wall. Because I looked at the audience and I was like, I have to get these guys' attention. And as soon as I said it, though, I was like, oh, that just came out of my mouth. And I still think about it to this day, and it makes me feel a little bit cringy about it. So the consequence or what I'm missing out on of holding on to this worry or regret or belief, I think it's kind of formed this belief in me that um, I need to like put up a wall when I'm giving presentations, which I don't think I do. So I think it's pulled me back a little bit from being as authentic as I can be when I'm teaching wellness classes. So I need to let it go and just continue to be myself and know that people are going to love me and love what I have to say. And to say to myself, I did everything I could in that moment with the tools that I had. And for some reason, my subconscious brain in that moment took over and my inner monologue came out. And I think it was a fear of what they were thinking about me, right? It was a fear that like there's these people that are totally not going to buy into this mindfulness presentation and they're judging me right now. That's really what it was. And then my inner monologue came out. So I need to let go of it and to know that they're they're not judging you if they're still in the class. They haven't left, or if they're in a Zoom call, they haven't turned off the camera. They're still there. That's my own fear and my own judgment about what I'm teaching. And to just have faith in what I'm teaching and what I have to give to the world. So that's who I was then. I've grown since then. That's who I was then, and I release it. And I'm gonna move forward. And that's it. That's my regret today.
I liked that a lot. That was a great story. Do you want feedback today?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty light, pretty nice, like little story. I loved it. So you said something about being never invited back. Do you actually think it's because you said a swear in council chambers?
I don't know. I don't think it is, but I think there's this inkling. I also think it was the last workshop. They had bought like a 6 workshop package and it was the last one. Right? But then I think, oh, maybe they like never invited me back because I did that. You know?
Right. I don't know. I think in those environments, there's a lot of like process around the speakers they bring in and stuff. So unless like, how did you get this opportunity in the first place?
To be honest with you, I don't remember. I
Yeah.
think I was giving a workshop somewhere else in Peterborough. I was giving a
Mm-hmm.
workshop at like a health clinic, and one of the participants said, "Hey, I work for HR for the city of Peterborough, and
Oh,
I'd love you
cool.
to come and it's just like a word of mouth referral thing."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they bought 3 workshops, and then 6 months later, they were like, "Do you have any more workshops?" And I did 3 more workshops for them.
Oh, nice.
But then after that, I never got called back again.
Yeah. Were you living in Peterborough at the time or Toronto?
No, I was living in Toronto. I was
Yeah.
driving in to do
Okay.
it. But
I'm just trying to think of other reasons, like, because I don't know. I think everyone's an adult, and like to hear someone swear is probably not the worst thing.
no, I think it's just the way I was raised, like you don't swear in public. I do
Yeah.
now. I've sworn on this
Yeah.
podcast before.
Right.
I just did
Right.
it right now, telling the story.
So funny.
But I also think it taps into my triggers about how I used to work for a municipality and
Mm,
I felt like I needed to be perfect all the time. And then
right.
all of a sudden I wasn't perfect. And this was another municipality that I was giving a workshop for. Right. So it was
Hmm.
like, are they judging me based on the standards of like what my old employer judged me on?
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you talked about it forming this belief about having a wall up. Um, because in my experience, you put up that kind of wall and then it backfires. So do you have any other experiences where you've used the wall approach and it maybe didn't work as well as you thought it would?
Well, I think this is how I've grown since then as well,
Mm-hmm.
is I think this was kind of just a little last piece I needed to like let float away, a little tiny speck I
Yeah.
need to let float away because I used to give a lot of corporate wellness workshops, a lot of training
Mm-hmm.
workshops. I train a lot of staff, a lot of leadership workshops, a lot of team building workshops, those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
Before I started my own business. And now I
Right.
work more one on one or I give workshops. But I think what makes my Recreo, my business, is better is that I've learned how to be more authentic. It's not like I'm putting on a
Right.
show whenever I give a workshop. And also, they're
Mm-hmm.
all on Zoom now. So I'm coming to you from my
Mm-hmm.
home. And so I've learned how
Right.
to take down that wall and just be more authentic about it. And I think, I mean, this sounds really corporate to say I get better results, or I think people
Mm.
feel more connected to me. And
Mm-hmm.
participants in my classes and participants that do one-on-one work with me get better results because there's a real human connection there now. Whereas what I used
That
to
makes
do
sense.
before would be standing in front of an audience of 100, 200 people and giving a motivational speech or some sort of
Mm-hmm.
corporate wellness workshop, but for large groups of people. And you can still have large groups of people on Zoom, but there's just something a little different about it because I'm like, here, this is my
Yeah.
office. You can see it. It's behind me. And I try my best to be as authentic as possible. And I also think that's part of what's appealing about creating a podcast is
Mm.
I want people to feel connected to me so they feel like they can come to my classes and do one-on-one
Right.
work with me, wellness coaching with me, or come to a letting go meditation class or a brain fitness class or whatever it is, right? Or a workshop or a course. Um, I
Mm-hmm.
now believe the opposite of that. I now believe
Right.
that I don't have to be perfect and be perfect and be something people aspire to be perfection because perfection doesn't exist.
Right. Oh, totally. I also wonder the interplay of like being on your turf versus on being on at their turf.
Yeah.
Right, and how that can kind of play with like, and then also like if you're in front of an audience and it's not like bright lights on you, it's just like what you're saying in like a room like that, you're going to see groups of people kind of maybe whispering to each other, and they're not whispering about you. They could be, but usually they're not. Usually it's like a distraction, right? Like people are elbowing each other, being like, oh, you want to go get a beer after this? Oh yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah.
But you're not seeing any of that anymore. So I do think there's a comfort in the Zoom presentation versus being in the room.
I let my own fears in that moment, I think fear of judgment take over and
Yeah.
I dropped the F bomb. Like,
And who knows, maybe they loved it. Maybe they walked away from it being like, that's the best presentation I've ever seen.
yeah, maybe they were like, "Oh, she's authentic," and maybe
Yeah.
okay, here we go. We're shifting it. We're pivoting it right now, everybody.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the first step in me becoming a more authentic presenter and a more authentic course creator, and maybe that was the first step in me creating my Recreo.
Oh, maybe. Potentially.
Potentially.
We don't know.
Potentially, maybe that guided my subconscious brain to say, "Hey, you need to be more authentic," and now I am, and now I'm laying it all out there in the podcast with you, Shadoe.
Amazing. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess my only other question, and it's not necessarily about this situation at all, but this idea of something being cringe, I
Mm.
feel like it has really, like, speaking of fads, we were talking about fads off the top of this episode. Like, I feel like I never really heard the word cringe, and now it's everywhere. Like, what do you think? Like, just picking your brain, like, have you noticed that as well?
That's so
Or,
interesting. I haven't at all. I've kind of always used that word cringe. Is it everywhere?
mm, yeah,
Interesting.
I feel like especially like Gen Z will
Oh.
say that like millennial stuff is cringe. And
Oh.
then they'll like talk about stuff being outdated. And I'm like, oh no, I love that.
I just think for me the word cringe is like the other term, I think you've heard me say it before. When a regret's really strong or kind of this was kind of a funny regret, we'll be honest, but
Yeah.
for me cringe is that feeling almost of ruminating in it. Like it comes to your mind and you're like, oh, I don't want to think about that.
Yeah,
That happened. I also call it like the heebie jeebies. It's like,
totally.
oh, I don't want to think about myself. Oh, I can't think about myself in that moment. That happened. That's embarrassing. It's almost like embarrassing or um or it's enough that you're like really avoid it. You're like, so that happened and I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to think about it and I avoid it.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
cringe means to me, but interesting. I haven't heard that. But
Yeah,
again,
it's
I'm
definitely.
just like maybe not connected right now to the world. I don't know.
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't think you're missing much.
Yeah.
I've noticed that cringe had its moment in the sun a couple years back, and now it's like cringe to talk about cringe because again, the meta effect of it. So some people will like, like it's because like younger generations would say things like, the side part of your hair is cringe. Everyone does center part now.
Oh my God, I'm wearing a side
Um,
part right now, everybody.
yeah, because you're a millennial Gen Xer and that's
Yeah, I'm
cringe.
a
And
cusper.
like yeah, in that way, like I didn't like it being used, but I do appreciate like, yeah, there is no better description of that, like going inside yourself feeling. And it's weird to me that I just now thought about the idea that cringe and sponge are like kind of similar words.
Mm.
And so like it's kind of like when you squeeze a sponge, like that that motion is what it feels like inside for me when I think of these kind of stories. Like it's like cringing the sponge. I don't know if there's anything
Oh,
there, but
interesting. So interesting.
yeah, yeah,
Well, I have to say, I feel better now that I've let the whole world know
good.
that I'm not perfect and I dropped the F bomb in a corporate
Yeah. Well, and maybe
presentation.
that was the perfect way, right?
Yeah.
What's another like thing I've seen overused a lot is the the thing where like someone's giving a speech or a presentation or whatever, and then they like rip up the cards and speak from the heart. It's almost like overdone at this point. And it's kind of like I'm kind of seeing that in this story too, that it was like in a way it was kind of like I'm throwing away the cards. I'm just going to be authentic right here.
Well, I think
So,
this is exactly what I strive. There's a balance or there's a line between
mm-hmm,
being truly authentic or being contrived.
right.
And I strive in everything I do to have real human connection, to be truly authentic. Maybe authentic's overused, like to be genuine
Mm-hmm,
and to have real human
mm-hmm,
connection and to be unapologetically me, which is also part of this process. I have to relieve regrets to learn how to be unapologetically me
mm-hmm,
and to know that when I do that and when I my goal or my intention is always to create human connection so people can heal, whether they're listening to the podcast, whether they're part of the My Recreo membership community and they come to live Zoom classes, whether they take a course from
mm-hmm,
me, whether it's a person that I smile at on the street, it's a genuine smile. My
mm-hmm,
goal is always to create human connection because we've talked about this before, the six basic emotional needs. Connection is one
mm-hmm,
of our emotional needs. And I don't ever want it to feel contrived or fake. That's
mm-hmm.
probably why I struggle with Instagram. Like I don't do a lot on Instagram because I
Right.
prefer to do things that are like this podcast or like live Zoom classes
Mm,
that are kind of they're not 100% pre-planned. They're
right.
like, this is life and here's the genuine connection and let's connect over this conversation or let's connect over what
Mm-hmm,
I'm teaching or let's learn together or whatever that is. But I think there is a line where it can become contrived, like what you're saying. If it's planned in the
right.
presentation every time that you're going to give the exact same speech and rip up the cards,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's contrived to me.
Totally. And people can, yeah, and some people can pick up on that. I found around the holiday season this year, a lot of the newsletters I follow would send out a newsletter and about 5 minutes later send out an oopsie, I didn't mean
Oh,
to do that.
yes,
And it
they
was like,
did. Yes, they
and it
did.
was like, why, if it was like one or two, like whatever, but it was a good 60% of the creators I follow sent me this oopsie message. And I was like, that feels weird.
Contrived. Yeah, it feels
Yeah,
it's a new kind of technique to it's because the goal is to be authentic, but if everybody's
right.
doing the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
I think this is why I struggle with things like an email list too. If
Right.
you're on my email list, everybody, you'll probably notice I only send out 4 emails a year, or maybe an email blast if I'm have a new product or something like that. But I just ugh, like the all
Yeah.
like the like an email a day for a week when you're trying to sell a product or like just
Hmm.
I mean, whose inbox isn't full of all of these emails now,
Right. Right.
right? And so they also don't I don't know. They don't feel genuine to me
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
some of the way that the emails are written and I try my very best to be as authentic as I can be.
Oh yeah, like I know you pretty well, and when I receive your newsletter, I'm like, oh, this is very much Victoria. Like, even if it's a rambling part of the email, I'm like, good. I'm
Yeah,
glad there's a ramble
that's like
here.
Victoria's literal voice coming out on words. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And so, I mean, maybe today wasn't a regret now that I feel like we've
maybe.
totally shifted it. Maybe today is acknowledging that that was the starting point for me in terms of my journey to try my very best to create real human connection without and to own my own business to do that without any limitations of working for any other like corporate places with
Mm.
policies. I get to make my own
Hmm.
policies and
Right.
my policy is human connection and healing with whoever I work with. It's funny, I have an affirmation that I wrote that's up on my wall. I'm looking at it right now. When I
Hmm.
started my Recreo, here's my intention. I do the work I love. I work with and for people I really like, and I'm earning good money. That's my intention
Good.
always, right? I
Yeah.
love my work and I choose to work with and for people that I really like.
Hmm.
And how can you know if you like someone? You have to create a genuine human connection and learn about them to figure out if they're a person that you connect with or not. So
Right.
that's my intention and my
Yeah.
goal, all of it together.
Oh,
Okay,
that's
see,
great.
this is so great. I love this experiment, Shadow, because I went from thinking it's a regret to you just asking me some simple questions to realizing, like, oh no, that's part of my story, and maybe that was the part that's I've just reframed that memory now in my mind,
Amazing. Yeah,
thanks to
and
you.
I think we talked about this in the bumper episode. I don't the in between episode. I still don't know what quite to call it. Where like revealing some of these regrets that are like always on our mind has let new ones kind of come forward, and that can be good and bad.
The goal isn't for it to end, right?
No,
The goal isn't to be a perfect human being, but the goal is to
no,
continue to peel back the layers. Peel back the layers,
yeah,
peel back the layers, peel back the layers. There's an
hmm,
unlimited amount of layers to the human being that is Victoria and the human
yeah,
being that is Shadow. But the deeper we can get into the layers, the better self-awareness we can have and the better understanding we can have of a
hmm,
relationship we can have with ourselves. And I think that when we improve our relationship with ourselves, we improve our relationship, all of our relationships with the world, and we live a more free, easeful life because understanding is important.
like to stay on this metaphor. I know you're allergic to onions.
Yeah, I know.
I can't think of anything else that's
There's no
layered like
better
that.
metaphor, even though I'm allergic to
Yeah.
onions. There just isn't one that's better.
So sometimes what ends up happening, and again, now maybe this is just too like weird, but you have an onion and there's like a gross spot on it. So sometimes people just throw the whole onion away,
Right.
and other people like get under it, cut it in half, and use the good part of the onion. But
Mm.
like you can just peel back a couple layers, and that onion could be a nice,
It's still
shiny, beautiful thing.
fresh and new and
Yeah.
protected and all those. Oh, I like that, Shadow. All those
Yeah, but
things
like
underneath there.
sometimes if we haven't done that work, we try really hard to only show, like we keep the rotting piece of the onion on the outside, but we just kind of only present the not rotted side of the onion instead of peeling back what could be underneath.
Cool. I like
Yeah. So
that.
I don't know. Yeah. This is just me kind of, again, sponge and cringe are the same thing. And then onions have spots that we need to peel away to reveal the more beautiful onion underneath.
I'm loving your brain today. Do you know the way that the brain learns and the way you tap into learning and the way you tap into reframing your subconscious brain? One of the most powerful ways is imagination, pictures,
Mm,
analogies. Think about when you were a kid. That's how we
right.
learned imagination, pictures, playtime, visualization, daydreaming, all those things. And
Yeah.
that's why analogies like the onion analogy are so
Hmm.
powerful in
Yeah.
teaching us how to how to change these things that aren't tangible, right? To
Yeah.
change like our relationship with ourselves, our emotional health, all of these things. They're so important. So I
Hmm.
love it when you come up with a good analogy or a good like your brain's really good at doing that and I love it. I love it.
Yeah, no, that's very nice of you to say. I feel like sometimes it moves very quickly to these things, and then I can't quite verbalize what I'm thinking clearly. So I feel like you always pick up what I'm like throwing out there and being like, "Oh no, I get it," and
Why
that's
we're a
really
good
affirming.
team.
Oh my gosh, look at us.
All right, Shadow, do you have a regret that you would like to relieve today?
I do. This transition's always the worst part of every episode.
I'm not editing it out.
No, that's fine. Yeah, no, I'm
All
ready.
right,
I
let's hear
have
it.
it. Okay. I have an experience I need to let go of in order to move forward. I regret lying to RuPaul. Sorry, you can unmute. I see you laughing.
Sorry, I have myself muted in the background. I just started laughing. Okay, I'm
We
so
always mute our
excited.
letters.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm so excited. Okay, keep going. Keep
No,
going.
I really needed to, yeah,
Keep
okay. So
going.
I will continue and tell you the rest of the story, but you were laughing so hard, I wanted to make sure. Okay. About 5 years ago, Ben and I went to a special taping of Conan O'Brien in New York. It was a lot of fun, and after the taping, we went back to our hotel to get ready for dinner. On the way to dinner, Ben and I met RuPaul. We weren't even trying to. We were walking to dinner and saw Ru and George's waiting outside of a theater. People were trying to take pictures from afar, like in a weird, sneaky way. But like, you know me, I ended up just convincing Ben that we should go say hi. So we did. And we started talking to them and we gushed about being really big fans. I was so impressed with how tall they both were, or are, I guess, not were, but they're both really tall, gorgeous, beautiful men. And Rue was like, if you're such a big fan, name some of my work. And I think so. We referenced RuPaul's Drag Race, and he said something like, "Well, if you've watched my show, all you're saying is you have a TV and a pulse." It was so embarrassing. But then he still made polite conversation with us about where we were going to dinner, and then declined a photo when we asked for one, which is totally fair. Like that is his own boundary. Um, the consequences I am missing out on due to holding on to this regret are that although I have now watched every season of RuPaul's Drag Race and I can name many RuPaul songs, I still cringe when I think about that interaction and all the clues he was giving us in the conversation about dinner. He was making references to his show, he was making references to songs, and we were not picking it up at all. Um, in some ways, this has now like held me back from seeking new experiences. I'm sort of relieved that I've shared this, but I'm also still really embarrassed. I spend so much time thinking about that moment, probably because I do still watch a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race. But I really need to stop. I need to let this go because I'm certain that Rue has never thought about us again, and the chances of randomly bumping into him are so minuscule that it makes no sense to keep preparing an apology. I did everything I could in that moment with the tools I had at the time, and that is okay. That is who I was then, and I've grown in so many ways. I'm now pretty sure I wouldn't just go up to a celebrity like that, and especially not with a big old foot in my mouth. I'm capable of meeting new people, respecting their boundaries, and worthy of new experiences.
Wow.
Yeah,
Do you want feedback or just want to be heard?
sure. Yeah.
Um, I almost have more feedback for RuPaul, to be honest with you.
No, I
I,
think Drew was right. I think I know where you're going to go with this, but I'm willing to hear it. But
I think first of all, it's like very Canadian of us. What you were saying at the end is like now I
yeah,
wouldn't approach a celebrity because we see it's a very Canadian thing to just like let celebrities be or not approach them too
yeah,
much. How
yeah.
long ago was this?
2017. Yeah. So like
Um,
6 years ago.
at
Yeah.
that point, were you a big fan?
Yeah. I mean, I had seen like maybe 3 seasons of Drag Race, and Ben hadn't seen it. And then during the pandemic, we have watched every season, some seasons more than once.
And songs.
Oh yeah, I have RuPaul songs on my general playlists.
Okay, so you were an actual fan. You weren't just like, here's somebody
Oh,
famous, I'm gonna walk up and talk to them.
no, I mean, at the time I didn't have any song. Like I'm saying now I have
But
songs on my
back
playlist.
then, like,
Back then I was just like so cool. Like I saw RuPaul in the flesh and was like, seriously? Like we're just gonna walk by him and not say anything? No, we're going back. Like let's go say hi.
uh, did anybody else go up and say hi to him?
No. But there was all kinds of people like trying to sneakily take photos. You could see them from far away. And I'm sure that's just ruined George's life.
Well, I think it's any
But
celebrity's life. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So,
And I was even trying to big up Ben. I was trying to be like, oh, and Ben can sashay with the best of them. But like sashay means go away. So like I even messed up trying to like use the lingo.
yeah, so you were just like verbal diarrhea all over the
Oh,
place.
big time. Big time. Yeah.
Which happens when we meet our heroes or meet famous people. I feel like there's kind of two things that
Yeah.
could happen. You'd like totally clam up, or you like totally
Mm-hmm.
just like bleh, all over the place. You're just
Yeah.
like, and you're just like, why
Yeah.
did I say that?
And I remember asking what they were there for, and they were just there to see a play, right? Like people in New York go to plays. We had just come from a taping of a show, like, and it was intermission, so then like the lights started flickering and they had to go in. But yeah, we used every minute of their intermission to be like, oh my gosh. And
And you
then
weren't like taking the hint. It feels like
no,
RuPaul was trying
no,
to get rid of you by saying like, well, if you really are a big fan,
yeah. But it was in such a jovial way. Like I think I like in the letter, it kind of comes off as rough, but it was really just like a night. It was just a question, and still like asked us where we were from, where we were going for dinner. I remember we were going to like Mexican for dinner, and he was like, "Why? Like you're in New York. Like Mexican is a
yeah, get
California."
pizza.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. But we still went to the Mexican restaurant. And it was fine. I think I've had better Mexican in Toronto, to be honest, but it was still like totally fine. Plus, we were like completely just jazzed about meeting RuPaul, even though we had made such asses of ourselves.
So, okay, so here's a question. You've been holding on to it. There's obviously a reason you chose to like tell the
Yeah,
story today.
yeah.
I feel like most people would, or maybe not most, I shouldn't say it in generalization, would do that and be like, oh my God, I made such an ass of myself and just laugh it off.
Right.
I'm curious how much guilt there has been associated with this experience. And is that why you've been determined to watch like every single episode of RuPaul's Drag Race?
I've thought about that plenty of times. I had watched a few seasons before that experience, but I didn't have like access to good streaming at the time, and it wasn't really on any channels. Plus, like Ben wasn't into it yet. He's into it now. And I actually do remember that before I met Ru, I tried to get Ben into RuPaul's Drag Race because the new season was out, and we had downloaded it from Pirate Bay. And looking back, it wasn't actually the Drag Race. It was just what they call Untucked, which is like a companion show that goes with RuPaul's Drag Race. But I didn't know that at the time. I just thought they had completely changed the format of the show. And I was like, what? What is this? So we had given one episode a chance and then never went back to it, kind of thing, in the early days of our relationship. And yeah, I don't think it's guilt. I think at this point, like, I watch the seasons of Drag Race that don't have RuPaul because now I'm just obsessed with the drag queens and the format of the show and like just the joy it brings, kind of thing. So I mean, maybe there's partly that I feel guilty, but like I think it's more that like when I'm, we just talked about imagination. So sometimes when I'm daydreaming, I picture like running into both of them again, and like, preparing oh my gosh, you remember me? We were that weird Canadian couple from this day at this time, and you were watching a play, and like just do the exact same thing
Yeah.
again. So, Also, I think the show's really taken off in the last few years in a way that it still wasn't as popular in 2017. And I think it was also that we were looking for something to watch during the pandemic that could take up a lot of time. And that was the ticket. Because it's not like we went home and started watching Drag Race like that weekend. You know what I mean? We didn't start watching it till the pandemic started. So that was still 3 years
Okay,
later.
so you genuinely appreciate it for the art that it is.
Yeah. And even like, you know, there's a lot of criticism online that like Rue's kind of like not the greatest part of the show. And I would agree with that. But at the same time, like the way Rue has changed the perception of drag queen culture and gay culture and like has made a couple missteps in like trans representation, but I think has really tried to change that in the last few seasons. And I've seen a big change in that way. So I do still think it's an important show. And especially now with all this like drag queen drama going on. I don't know if you've seen any of these news
No?
reports, but like it happens all over the States and it's starting to proliferate into Canada where people with like armed rifles show up at drag queen story time or drag queen brunch or anything where like kids are allowed to be close to drag queens. There's a lot of protesting going on and it's really gross and really awful. And it just makes me so sad. So
It's beyond gross. It's scary.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, especially because like they're saying like the people who do it say they're doing it because like they want to protect the kids. But like
From what?
if I was a kid coming out of the library and there was 7 weird people with guns and signs talking about how like drag queens are groomers, like I think that would be more scary than
Yeah.
the man in a dress reading a story to me. Like,
It's interesting. I hadn't,
I
I
don't know.
hadn't heard any of those stories, and
Oh, it's
just
awful.
recently, actually, in my like local community Facebook group, I saw a post that there's going to be drag queen time at my local library.
Oh,
And all the
fun.
comments underneath were great. They're like, "Oh, this is
Right.
fun. This is great. I'm going to take my kids to this." But again,
We live in
I live in
Toronto.
Toronto.
We
I live
have,
in a very
yeah.
diverse city. I live in
Hmm.
Canada. I live in, right? I mean, not to say
See, you
that
would
stuff that
think,
like this doesn't happen in Canada, because it does, but I live in a very accepting, diverse community. Yeah.
yeah, it just happened in Hamilton about 6 weeks ago. There was gonna there was supposed to be something really cool with like the winners of Canada's Drag Race in Sudbury a couple weeks ago, and it got canceled. And then thankfully another like venue picked up the event because it just couldn't be held at the high school anymore. But like there was a lot of uproar about it. And then there was like kind of like anti-protest about the protest. And then it becomes like this whole thing. So I do think like, you know, I just enjoy drag for the entertainment of it. But also I do think we're starting to see a bit of retraction in the way gender expression is allowed. And I'm sad for people who thought it was safe. And now we're seeing like again, I don't want to compare us to the States, but the Trumpification of stuff that's happening and he's running again. And if he wins again, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a scary world. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Can
Not to
I?
put a big downer
No,
on our fun and light episode about like,
I have one
yeah,
more question.
yeah, great.
You said that that experience has held you back from seeking new experiences.
I think so.
How?
I think, well, I mean, part and parcel, like there has just been a restriction of people able to do new experiences lately. But I think I'm worried, like I'm almost like I've become too laser focused on the thing I'm doing if I'm trying out something new. Like I'm not keeping my eyes open to all the possibilities of perhaps running into a celebrity because if I were to do it, am I just going to embarrass myself again?
Did you feel judged and embarrassed? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Did you feel judged and
No,
embarrassed?
not by him, just by myself. Like, and just when I think about it, like,
Was
yeah.
there anything that RuPaul did that made you feel anything heavy or negative? about yourself?
No, because the fact that he took time to like actually have a conversation with us and like, like sure that was a funny moment in the conversation that we couldn't like name other things that Ru had did other than RuPaul's Drag Race. Um, I didn't know. I didn't feel judged in that moment. And then George's was so nice too. I haven't talked enough about his husband. His husband was so nice in that in it, like I just was so impressed with both of them.
So you've judged yourself about it and
Hmm.
felt embarrassed about it because you care about what important people think?
Yeah.
Can you
I
answer
also
the
just
because part? I'm just curious.
I think the because part comes down to not that I embarrassed myself, but more that I inconvenienced someone for my own experience,
Oh,
right?
interesting. So your time isn't valuable? Only their time is?
Well, yeah.
Interesting.
Because it was just like, because again, it was just the universe. It wasn't like it was a meet and greet. It wasn't like a planned thing. Like they were just trying to have a nice time out, and here come the
That's the
Canadians to be
Canadian
like,
guilt for sure. Oh, I bothered a celebrity. Like we've definitely been like preconditioned around that. But
yeah,
okay, so I have a little bit of a different opinion than when you told the story. Initially, my
okay.
opinion was like, wow, RuPaul was really harsh. But I think you're also being harsh on yourself about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I also I get it now. Like, not that I put out a lot of content or anything, but if someone came up to me and was like, "I'm such a big fan," and you're like, "Tell me one thing I've done," like, and you can't do it, like,
It's
you
interesting
know.
because I have a friend who is YouTuber. He runs a YouTube channel. He's like the number one in his category. And he is I have was having a discussion with him about this because he's basically a celebrity. He all right, I'm just gonna shout him out. Brian Christopher. We've been Christian and I, he's friends with us. We've known him for like 20 years. He runs a YouTube channel where he plays slots, like slot machines.
Oh, okay,
And
cool.
he's like can't go into a casino now without people like recognizing him. And we've known him for years, since way before he did this. He went to school with
Mm-hmm.
Christian. And we had this conversation about it once, and he was just like, I realize that people get tongue tied because it's a big moment for them. For me,
Right.
I'm like, oh, I'm just meeting another human being. They're coming up to say hi to me because they know who I am. And
Yeah.
he's really intentional about just being really, really kind with anybody that comes up to him to say hi to
Mm-hmm.
him, and trying to have a really like genuine connection and conversation with them. And um I don't really feel like your experience was like that in some ways. And I think that I get it. I get like, I mean, I don't get it. Like, I can only imagine being a celebrity as big as like where paparazzi's following you around and stuff. And you want
Mm-hmm.
your privacy. And I agree, you should have your privacy. But I think you have to find that fine line of like dismissing people with grace and kindness. And I know that you feel like maybe they didn't do that, but as soon as you said they're like, well, if you're a real fan, what do you know about me? I just feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's not very kind. And I think that if you have influence, whether you're famous, whether you're an influencer on social media, whether you just hold a position of authority, like being a boss and you have employees underneath you, I think
Mm-hmm.
that it's socially responsible and just responsible in general to understand the power of your influence and to use it for good. That's all. And I'm not really
Yeah.
judging the situation either way. That was just kind of my initial
Mm-hmm.
reaction is, you know, if someone came up to me and said, I took one of your workshops and I really loved it, I would it's not my place to put them on the spot and be like, "Oh, really? Well, what was your one thing that you learned that you've integrated into your life?" I don't
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's very kind. I think they're just coming up to give you
Yeah.
love and to say like, "I appreciate you and what I've learned from you or what you've done for the world or whatever." And you just need to receive it.
Yes and no. I I hear that, and I appreciate that we should move through the world with kindness. But I actually think he was being more genuine by
Mm,
saying that. I don't
interesting.
think he put up a wall by saying that. I think he like or maybe because people get so tongue-tied, maybe he thought he was asking a helpful question. Like,
Oh, see, okay, I understand.
so like there, but also like he can be bitchy. He's like the
Yeah,
biggest drag
no,
queen in the
I
world.
have I have like difficulty like in terms of I think it's your responsibility if you hold influence to use your influence
Hmm.
for good, but I also back to the being authentic piece is we also shouldn't judge people when they are authentic in some places. So I'm kind of walking a tightrope on both sides here,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
I
Because
see both
I think,
sides. Yeah.
yeah, that's why like the embarrassment is on my shoulders. Because again, like could have just told us to fuck right off. Didn't.
Yeah.
Actually took the time to have a conversation with us until intermission was over, and like that's sweet.
Okay, so how do you feel about letting it go then? Let go of the judgment of yourself and the embarrassment of yourself.
Yeah, I'm glad I talked to you about it. Again, in my mega imagination, this podcast will get to Rue, and then but I know that's not going to happen. But yeah, no, it's a fun thing to talk about. I also think, gave me a lot, right? I think if I would have just been like, we love you, and he was just like, thank you. And like that would have been such a nothing experience. But this experience is a little bit more meaty. It's like he had like because I was like I've become much more of a kind person over the years, but I think in that time I still loved like a little bit of casual ribbing. I was a
Yeah,
teaser. I
we
like
talked about
being
this before. We
teased.
talked about this in the last season. Yeah.
Like that was love. Like that was like, teasing back and forth is just kind of a love language that I grew up with. Um, so yeah, so I don't, yeah, I think it was fine. Like I think, and again, like it's given me this whole episode, right? Like if it had just gone nicely, there wouldn't even be a regret about it, or like it wouldn't take up space in my brain. I do need to investigate like the dedication we have to the franchise. But overall, like it is really about the queens at this point and like showcasing new talent. So yeah,
Well, I also
I
think
think
it's
that's
like
what I like
super
about the
cool that you
show.
got to meet a famous person. I mean, like,
Oh, of
and that you
course.
got to like kind of stand in their energy and feel their energy, which is
Totally.
it's always kind of iffy meeting your heroes. It can go
Mm-hmm.
either way. So
Yeah. Well, and
I'm
it's
glad you interpret
yeah,
that as a good experience.
yeah. I actually can literally in my mind replay it over and over. I said something, I think it was the sachet thing, and he just said, okay. And he does that on the show all the time when a queen is not making sense. And it fills my heart every
All
time. Because
right.
I'm like, I know exactly, like, I know how that felt. Like, because it felt like embarrassing, but also like, right. Like, again, he's a very old man at this point and has had quite a life. So,
Okay,
you
so here's
know,
what I'm gonna say. I think it's good that you like practice that you released it today. What you released is
mhm,
not the whole experience. You're
true.
releasing your embarrassment around it so that you can still
Hmm.
have that memory. We've talked it out, and you can have that
Yeah,
memory be a joyful memory for you now.
I agree.
Cool.
Amazing. So, shall we wrap up our episode?
Let's wrap it up with our three breaths of letting go, everybody. So if you can and if you choose to, come to the front edge of your chair or stand up. Um, Put your feet flat on the floor so that you feel grounded. One hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. And just take a moment maybe to reflect on your past week and if there's any regrets, embarrassments that you would like to release. Or if anything came up for you where you were listening to Shadoe and I release our regrets today. And on this first breath in, I want you to say to yourself, I choose to release pressure and expectations. On this next breath in, breathe in. And as you breathe out, I relieve my regrets. My past does not define me. And on this last breath in, As you breathe out, I choose to be kind to myself moving forward. Which I think is really was our theme today. I choose to be kind to
Mhm.
myself moving forward and not judge myself. And I think that's a really important life skill. Thank you
Excellent.
for being with me here today, my friend Shadoe.
Thank you for leading us through the breaths.
All right, everybody. See you next time. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.